The winter wind cut through Lily's thin jacket as she walked down the busy street. Her fingers had turned red from the cold, and her stomach had been empty for almost 2 days now. At 17, Lily never thought she'd end up homeless, but life had other plans. 8 months ago, her mom had lost her battle with cancer. The medical bills had eaten up all their savings, and without her mom's income, they couldn't keep their small apartment. First came the eviction notice, then the desperate couch surfing at friends' homes, and finally, when all options ran out, the streets became her home. Lily clutched her backpack tightly against her chest. Inside was everything she owned in the world: a change of clothes, a toothbrush, a dog-eared photo of her mom smiling at the beach, and carefully wrapped in a plastic bag to keep it dry, several sheets of piano music. The music was all she had left of her mother, who had once been a piano teacher before she got sick. The November evening in Chicago felt particularly cruel. The temperature had dropped below freezing, and the forecast mentioned snow later that night. Lily needed to find somewhere warm, at least for a little while. As she turned the corner onto Michigan Avenue, the smell of food wafted from a restaurant called Bella Notte. Through the windows, she could see people in warm clothes laughing and eating. Tables covered in white cloths held plates of steaming pasta and bread. The sight made her stomach growl so loudly that a woman passing by gave her a strange look. Lily hadn't begged yet. She'd searched through trash bins behind grocery stores, collected cans for recycling money, and occasionally a kind stranger would buy her a sandwich, but she'd never directly asked for food at a restaurant. The thought made her chest tight with shame, but the hunger pains were stronger than her pride tonight. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the heavy wooden door of Bella Notte. Warmth hit her face immediately, along with the delicious smells of garlic and tomato sauce. For a moment, she just stood there, letting the warmth seep into her frozen bones. A tall man in a crisp black suit approached her with a frown. He had a small pin on his jacket that read, "Head waiter." "Can I help you?" he asked, his eyes moving from her dirty sneakers to her unwashed hair. "I was wondering." Lily's voice came out as a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. "I was wondering if you needed any help tonight. Washing dishes or cleaning up? I could work for a meal." The man's frown deepened. "This is a fine dining establishment, not a soup kitchen." He looked around nervously as if worried the customers might see her. "We don't offer handouts. Please leave before I call security." Lily felt her face grow hot with embarrassment. A few nearby diners had turned to stare at her. She nodded and turned to leave when something caught her eye. In the corner of the restaurant stood a beautiful grand piano. It was black and glossy, with the lid propped open. The sight of it made her heart skip a beat. For a moment, she wasn't cold or hungry. She was back in their old apartment, sitting beside her mom on the bench of their second-hand upright piano, learning how to play her first song. Her mom had been a wonderful teacher, patient but firm. "Music is a way to speak when words fail you," she used to say. "When you play from your heart, people will listen." For years, they'd spent evenings at that piano, Lily's fingers growing stronger and more confident under her mom's guidance. The head waiter cleared his throat, snapping Lily back to reality. "I'm going," she said softly, but her eyes remained fixed on the piano. It had been 8 months since she'd touched a keyboard. 8 months since music had left her life, along with everything else. As she reluctantly turned toward the door, a voice spoke up from behind the host stand. "Wait a minute." An older woman with silver-streaked black hair tied in a neat bun stepped forward. She wore a deep red dress and had the confident air of someone in charge. "Rosa, this girl needs to leave," the head waiter said quietly. "She's disturbing the customers." The woman, Rosa, held up her hand to silence him. Her dark eyes studied Lily with curiosity rather than disgust. "You keep looking at my piano," Rosa said. "Do you play?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. "I used to. My mom taught me, but what? But she died, and we lost our piano when we lost our home." A few customers nearby had stopped eating to listen. Lily could feel their stares burning into her back, judging her, pitying her. She wanted to run out the door, but something in Rosa's expression kept her rooted to the spot. "Our pianist called in sick tonight," Rosa said after a moment. Her voice was matter-of-fact, but there was a softness in her eyes. "It's why the piano sits empty. Usually we have someone playing during dinner service." The head waiter looked alarmed. "Rosa, you can't possibly be suggesting—" "Anthony, please. I own this restaurant, and I'll decide what happens in it." Rosa turned back to Lily. What's your name, child? Lily? Lily Chen. Well, Lily Chen, I'm making you an offer. Play something for us. If you're good, you'll get a hot meal and a chance to warm up. If not, she shrugged. Nothing lost but a few minutes of our time. Anthony looked like he wanted to object further but kept silent. Around them, the restaurant had grown quieter as more people tuned into the unusual scene unfolding. Lily felt a flutter of panic in her chest. It had been so long since she'd played. What if she couldn't remember anything? What if her fingers, stiff from cold and lack of practice, refused to cooperate? But then her stomach growled again, reminding her of what was at stake. Okay, she said. I'll try. Rosa nodded and gestured toward the piano. Lily made her way across the restaurant floor, painfully aware of her appearance in the elegant setting. Her jeans had dirt stains at the knees, and her once white sneakers were now a dingy gray. She hadn't washed her hair in days, and she probably smelled bad too. As she sat down on the piano bench, she heard whispers from nearby tables. Is she homeless? What is Rosa thinking? This should be interesting. Lily took a deep breath and placed her cold fingers on the keys. The ivory felt smooth and familiar under her touch, like greeting an old friend. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to calm her racing heart. What should she play? Her mind raced through the pieces she knew. Something simple might be safer, but would it be good enough to earn her that meal? Then she remembered her mom's voice. When you play from your heart, people will listen. Lily opened her eyes and began to play. Her fingers found the opening notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune, her mother's favorite piece, and the last one they had worked on together before the hospital. Stays became permanent. The first few notes came out hesitantly. Her fingers felt clumsy and stiff, unused to the delicate work of bringing music to life. But as the familiar melody began to flow, something inside Lily awakened. The restaurant, the staring people, even her hunger. Everything faded away until there was only the music. The piece was about moonlight, about beauty and darkness, about finding light when everything seems dim. As Lily played, she poured all her grief and loneliness into the music, but also the love she still carried for her mother, the memories that kept her going even on the coldest nights. She didn't notice when the restaurant fell completely silent. She didn't see Rosa's eyes widen in surprise or the way Anthony's jaw dropped slightly. She was lost in the music, finding her way back to herself note by note. When Lily finally reached the end of the piece, the last notes hanging in the air like a whispered goodbye, she sat still for a moment, eyes closed, not quite ready to come back to reality. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever. Then someone started to clap. Another person joined in, and another. Suddenly the entire restaurant was applauding, not the polite, obligatory kind, but genuine, enthusiastic applause. Lily opened her eyes in surprise. She turned to see people standing from their tables, some wiping tears from their eyes. Rosa stood nearby, her expression a mixture of shock and delight. Even Anthony looked impressed. Where did you learn to play like that? Rosa asked when the applause finally died down. My mom was a piano teacher, Lily said, her voice small against the fading applause. We practiced every day until she got sick. Rosa nodded as if making up her mind about something. She turned to Anthony. Get this girl the best meal in the house, whatever she wants. Then to Lily she said, when was the last time you ate a proper meal? 2 days ago, Lily admitted. Someone gave me half a sandwich. Rosa's expression softened further. Well, today you'll eat like a queen. And tomorrow? She paused, studying Lily thoughtfully. Tomorrow we'll talk about what happens next. Because talent like yours shouldn't be sleeping on the streets. As Anthony led her to a table by the window, the best in the house, Lily felt something she hadn't experienced in 8 long months. Hope. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for tonight at least her hunger would be satisfied, and her heart felt lighter for having played again. What she didn't know was that a customer in the corner had recorded her entire performance on a phone. By morning, Lily's life would change in ways she couldn't imagine. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight was about a warm meal and the piano that had reminded her who she really was. Lily woke up disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was. Instead of the hard concrete of an underpass or the creaky bench of a bus shelter, she felt something soft beneath her. A real bed. The events of the previous night came rushing back. The restaurant, the piano, Rosa's kindness. After her performance at Bella Notte, Rosa had insisted Lily couldn't return to the streets. The restaurant owner had a small apartment above the establishment, where she occasionally stayed on late nights. She'd given Lily the key, a clean towel, and strict instructions to get some rest. "Tomorrow we figure things out," Rosa had said firmly. "Tonight you sleep in a real bed." Lily had been too exhausted to argue. After a hot shower, her first in weeks, and a meal that made her nearly cry with gratitude, she'd fallen asleep instantly on the small but comfortable sofa bed. Now sunlight streamed through unfamiliar curtains. Lily sat up slowly, half expecting it all to vanish like a dream. But the room remained solid around her. A simple studio apartment with a kitchenette, a small table, and a few personal touches that spoke of Rosa's personality. Colorful paintings of Italian landscapes, a shelf of cookbooks, and a small potted herb garden on the windowsill. A soft knock on the door startled her. "Lily, are you awake?" Rosa's voice came through the door. "I've brought breakfast." Lily hurried to open the door. Rosa stood there holding a tray with coffee, orange juice, and a plate of scrambled eggs with toast. Behind her stood Anthony, the head waiter who had initially tried to turn Lily away. His expression was considerably warmer this morning. "Good morning," he said with a slight bow of his head. "I owe you an apology for yesterday. I was hasty in my judgment." Lily blushed, uncomfortable with the attention. "It's okay. I know I don't look like your usual customers." "Appearance isn't everything," Rosa said, setting down the tray, "something I've been trying to teach him for years." She gave Anthony a pointed look that suggested this was an ongoing conversation between them. Anthony cleared his throat. "I've brought you something." He held out a small stack of clothes, jeans, a sweater, socks, and a warm jacket. "My daughter is about your size. These are clean and she doesn't wear them anymore." Lily took the clothes, fighting back tears. It had been so long since anyone had shown her kindness like this. "Thank you," she managed to say. "Eat first," Rosa instructed. "Then get dressed. We have things to discuss." While Lily ate, Rosa explained that Anthony had opened the restaurant early to prepare for lunch service. They wouldn't be disturbed for at least an hour. The food was simple but delicious. The eggs perfectly cooked, the toast warm and buttery. Lily tried not to eat too quickly, though her body craved the nourishment after so long without regular meals. When she finished, Rosa didn't waste any time getting to the point. "Someone recorded your performance last night," she said, pulling out her phone. "One of our regular customers, Mrs. Wu, posted it online." Lily nearly choked on her last sip of orange juice. "What? Why would she do that?" "Because you're remarkable," Rosa said simply. "Listen, I've owned this restaurant for 22 years. We've had professional pianists play that corner every night. None of them played with the emotion you showed." She handed Lily the phone. The video had a simple title: "Homeless Girl Plays Piano Beautifully in Chicago Restaurant." Lily watched herself through a stranger's eyes. Her dirty clothes, her unwashed hair, her thin frame perched nervously at the piano. Then she began to play, and even through the phone's small speaker, the music carried power. "How many people have seen this?" Lily asked, noticing the view count. "About 50,000 so far," Rosa said. "And it's only been up for 10 hours. 50,000. Lily whispered in disbelief. Anthony nodded. "It's what they call going viral. The restaurant phone has been ringing all morning. 2 local news stations have called asking about you." Lily handed the phone back with shaking hands. This wasn't what she wanted. Attention meant questions. Questions about her past, about her mother's death, about how she ended up on the streets. Questions she wasn't ready to answer. "I should go," she said, suddenly standing up. "Thank you for everything, but I can't—" "Sit down," Rosa said, her tone gentle but firm. "Nobody is forcing you to do anything. But running back to the streets when opportunity knocks is foolish." "What opportunity?" Lily asked. "Having people feel sorry for me? Being some kind of circus act? Come see the amazing homeless girl play piano." Rosa's eyes flashed with something. Not anger, but a fierce determination. "Is that what you think happened last night? That people were entertained by your misfortune?" "No, child. They were moved by your gift." Anthony cleared his throat again. "There's something else you should know. Mrs. Wu didn't just post the video. She started something called a GoFundMe. It's a website where people can donate money to causes." "For me?" Lily asked, her voice small. "Yes. She set a goal of $5,000 to help you find housing and continue your music education." He paused. The fund is currently at $12,340 and rising by the minute. Lily sank back into her chair, overwhelmed. That amount of money seemed impossible, unreal, more than she'd ever had in her life. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would strangers give me money? Because people recognize talent worth saving, Rosa said. And because sometimes people are better than we give them credit for. Lily stared out the window, watching the busy street below. People hurried past, wrapped in warm coats, heading to jobs and homes and lives that had structure. For 8 months, she'd existed on the margins, invisible except when she was in someone's way. Now suddenly, thousands of people had seen her, heard her music. I don't know what to do, she admitted. Rosa pulled her chair closer. First, you stay here until we figure things out. The apartment is yours as long as you need it. I can't pay rent, Lily protested. Who said anything about rent? Consider it an investment in your future. Rosa waved away her concerns. Second, we need to talk about your music. What about it? You need to continue your education, Rosa said firmly. Talent like yours needs proper training. Anthony nodded in agreement. Mrs. Wu's husband is on the board of the Chicago Academy of Music. He's already reached out about a possible scholarship. Lily felt like she was dreaming. Less than 24 hours ago, her biggest concern had been finding somewhere warm to sleep. Now people were talking about scholarships and donations and futures she'd stopped believing were possible. This is too much, she said finally. I'm just a homeless kid who knows how to play piano because my mom taught me. I'm not special. Rosa reached out and took Lily's hand. Her palm was warm and slightly rough, the hands of someone who had worked hard all her life. Let me tell you something, she said. When I came to this country 40 years ago, I had nothing but $20 and a recipe book from my grandmother. People told me a woman with no education and broken English would never own a business. Now I have 3 restaurants and a cooking school. She squeezed Lily's hand. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent or luck. It's what you do when opportunity knocks. Right now, opportunity isn't just knocking, it's breaking down your door. Before Lily could respond, Anthony's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his eyebrows shot up. It's Mrs. Wu, he said. She's downstairs with a reporter from the Tribune. They're asking if Lily would be willing to do an interview. Panic flashed across Lily's face. Rosa noticed immediately. Tell them not today, she instructed Anthony. Lily needs time to process everything. The story can wait. After Anthony stepped out to make the call, Rosa turned back to Lily. No one will force you into the spotlight. But sooner or later, you'll need to decide what you want. What I want, Lily repeated as if the concept was foreign to her. Yes, not what you need to survive. What you want for your life. Do you want to play piano? Do you want to study music? Or is there something else calling to you? Lily closed her eyes, thinking of all those evenings with her mother at their old upright piano. The joy she'd felt last night when her fingers touched the keys again. The way the music had always been her safe place even before everything fell apart. I want to play, she said finally, opening her eyes. I want to make my mom proud, Rosa smiled. Then that's where we start. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Rosa insisted Lily rest and adjust to her new circumstances, but information kept flowing in. The GoFundMe had reached $20,000 by afternoon. A local piano teacher had offered free lessons after seeing the video. A community college had reached out about their music program. That evening, Rosa brought dinner upstairs and they ate together at the small table. The restaurant owner shared stories about her life, about building her business from nothing, about losing her husband to cancer 10 years ago and carrying on alone. Life breaks everyone sometimes, she told Lily. The trick is to let yourself be put back together differently. Not worse, just different. As night fell over Chicago, Lily stood at the window watching the city lights. For the first time in 8 months, she wasn't worried about where she would sleep or what she would eat tomorrow. Instead, her mind filled with possibilities. Somewhere in the city, people were watching her play, listening to her music, being moved by something she had created. The thought was terrifying and wonderful all at once. Before going to bed, she found herself sitting at the small digital keyboard Rosa had brought up from the restaurant's storage room. Her fingers moved across the keys, finding the opening notes of her mother's favorite Chopin piece. I'm trying, Mom, she whispered to the empty room. I'm trying to find my way back. The music flowed around her like an embrace, and for a moment, she could almost feel her mother's presence beside her on the bench. guiding her hands as she had done so many times before. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be decisions to make, opportunities to consider, a future to rebuild. But tonight, in this moment, the music was enough. 1 week after Lily's life-changing performance at Bella Nota, she sat in the waiting room of the Chicago Academy of Music, nervously tapping her foot against the polished wooden floor. The building itself was intimidating. An old stone structure with tall windows and a grand entrance hall lined with portraits of famous musicians. Even with her new clothes, bought with a small portion of the donation money, and her freshly cut hair, she felt out of place among the serious-looking students who passed through the hallways carrying instrument cases and sheet music. Mrs. Wu sat beside her, a petite woman in her 60s with kind eyes and an air of quiet determination. In the past week, she had become Lily's unexpected champion, managing the GoFundMe, which had now surpassed $65,000, fielding media requests, and most importantly, arranging today's audition with Professor Thomas Chen, the Academy's piano department head. "Remember to breathe," Mrs. Wu said gently, noticing Lily's anxiety. "Professor Chen may seem strict, but he has a good heart. Just play like you did at the restaurant, from your soul." Lily nodded, though her stomach was tied in knots. The viral video had now been viewed over 3 million times. Local news stations had run stories about the homeless piano prodigy, and 2 national morning shows had reached out for interviews. Rosa had helped shield Lily from most of this attention, insisting she needed time to adjust before being thrust into the spotlight. "What if I'm not good enough?" Lily whispered. "Everyone thinks I'm some kind of genius because of a 3-minute video, but I haven't had proper lessons in years. What if Professor Chen thinks I'm a waste of his time?" Mrs. Wu patted her hand. "That's not possible. You have a rare gift. Even without recent training, your musicality shines through. Technique can be taught, but passion comes from within." Before Lily could respond, the office door opened. A tall man with silver-streaked black hair and wire-rimmed glasses stepped out. He wore a crisp white shirt and dark pants, his posture perfect, his expression unreadable. "Miss Chen," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent. "I'm Professor Thomas Chen. Please come in." Lily stood on shaky legs. Mrs. Wu gave her an encouraging smile but remained seated. This was something Lily needed to do alone. The professor's office was lined with bookshelves filled with music texts and scores. A baby grand piano occupied one corner, its lid propped open. Unlike the glossy black piano at Bella Notte, this one was a warm mahogany color, well used but meticulously maintained. "Please sit down," Professor Chen said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. He remained standing, studying her with thoughtful eyes. "I've seen the video, of course. The entire faculty has. It's quite remarkable." "Thank you," Lily said quietly. "But a 3-minute video doesn't tell me what I need to know." He moved to stand beside the piano. "Before we begin, tell me about your training." Lily took a deep breath. "My mother was my teacher. She studied piano performance at Juilliard but had to quit when she got sick the first time. She taught private lessons from our apartment." "And how long did she teach you?" "From age 5 until 8 months ago when she—" Lily swallowed hard. "When she passed away from cancer." Professor Chen's expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry for your loss. And you haven't played at all during these 8 months?" Lily shook her head. "We lost our apartment after she died. I couldn't—" Her voice caught. "There was nowhere to play." The professor nodded, absorbing this information without comment. "Well, let's see where you are now. Would you play something for me?" "Your choice." Lily moved to the piano, her heart racing. The keys felt different than the one at Bella Nota, slightly heavier to the touch, requiring more precision. She wiped her sweaty palms on her jeans and thought about what to play. She decided on Bach's Prelude in C major from the Well-Tempered Clavier. Her mother had always started their lessons with Bach, insisting that his music built the foundation for everything else. As she began to play, Lily was acutely aware of Professor Chen watching her hands, listening for mistakes. The piece wasn't technically difficult, but it required clean articulation and steady rhythm. After the emotional release of Debussy at the restaurant, Bach's mathematical precision felt constraining, but Lily focused on the notes, trying to honor her mother's teachings. When she finished, Professor Chen's face remained neutral. "Now something more challenging, please. Something that shows your expressive range." Lily's mind raced through her repertoire. What would impress him? What would show her capabilities without exposing her weaknesses? She settled on Chopin's Nocturne in E minor, a piece that had been beyond her abilities when her mother was alive, but one she'd listened to countless times on her mother's old recordings. This time, as her fingers found the opening melody, Lily closed her eyes. She let the music guide her, trying not to think about technique or mistakes, but instead focusing on the emotional journey of the piece. Under her hands, the Chopin came alive, mournful yet beautiful, like a sad story told with love. When the final notes faded, she opened her eyes to find Professor Chen watching her with an unreadable expression. "Your technique needs considerable work," he said finally. "Your hand position sometimes compromises your tone quality. Your pedaling is intuitive but imprecise. Your fingering choices are occasionally unorthodox." Lily's heart sank. She'd failed. All this hope, all the attention, and she wasn't good enough after all. But then Professor Chen continued. "However, you have something many technically perfect players lack. You understand what the music is saying. You don't just play the notes, you tell the story." He moved back to his desk and sat down, gesturing for Lily to return to her chair. "Mrs. Wu tells me you're interested in our scholarship program," he said, shuffling through some papers. "Yes, sir," Lily replied, barely daring to hope. "Normally, a student at your level would enter our Young Artist program, which meets on weekends and after school hours. But given your unusual circumstances and the significant gaps in your formal training, I believe a different approach is warranted." He pulled out a form and began filling it out. "I'm recommending you for our special studies program. This would mean private lessons twice weekly with me, plus theory and music history classes. You would also need to practice at least 4 hours daily." Lily's eyes widened. "With you? But aren't you the department head?" A hint of a smile touched the professor's lips. "Yes, which means I can choose to teach whoever I wish. Your talent deserves proper guidance, and your story—" He paused. "Let's just say it resonates with me personally." "What do you mean?" Lily asked. Professor Chen leaned back in his chair. "My own teacher when I was a boy in Shanghai was a janitor at the conservatory who played beautifully but was never allowed to be a student because of his poor background. He taught me in secret after hours using the school's pianos when no one was around." His eyes grew distant with memory. "He used to say music doesn't care about your clothes or your address. It only cares about your heart." For the first time since entering the office, Lily felt herself truly breathe. Someone understood. "There's something else you should know," Professor Chen continued, his tone becoming businesslike again. "The academy has a dormitory for students who need housing. There's a room available, should you wish to take it." "A room?" Lily repeated. "You mean live here?" "It's not luxurious, but it's safe, and you would have access to practice rooms at all hours." He smiled slightly. "Music students tend to keep unusual schedules." Lily's mind raced. A place to live. A place to study. A future she hadn't dared imagine just days ago. "What about the cost?" she asked. "I have the donations, but I don't know if it's enough for tuition and housing," and Professor Chen held up his hand. "The scholarship covers tuition. As for housing, the board has voted to waive those fees for your first year, after which we can reassess. The donation money should be used for your living expenses and perhaps a piano of your own eventually." He slid the form across the desk. "Of course, all of this depends on your commitment. The program is rigorous. There will be days when you question whether it's worth it. The question is, are you prepared to work harder than you ever have before?" Lily thought about the past 8 months, sleeping under bridges, digging through trash for food, the bone-deep exhaustion of simply surviving. She thought about her mother, who had played through pain, who had taught lessons until she was too weak to sit at the piano, who had believed in music's power to transform lives. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'm ready." When she emerged from the office 30 minutes later, Mrs. Wu stood up eagerly. One look at Lily's face told her everything she needed to know. "You're in," Mrs. Wu said. Not a question, but a statement. Lily nodded, still processing everything that had happened. "He's giving me private lessons himself, twice a week, and there's a room I can live in right here at the academy." Mrs. Wu clapped her hands together. "Wonderful. I knew he would see what we all saw in that video." She checked her watch. "We should celebrate. Rosa is expecting us for lunch at Bella Notte. She'll want to hear everything." As they walked out of the academy and into the bright spring sunshine, Lily felt like she was walking into a different world, or perhaps back into the world she'd been forced to leave when her mother died. That evening, after sharing the news with Rosa and Anthony, after calling the social worker who had been assigned to her case, after answering a dozen questions about what she would need for her new room, Lily found herself alone at the piano in Bella Notte. The restaurant was closed for a private event, but Rosa had given Lily permission to use the piano whenever she wanted. Sitting there, her fingers moving through scales and arpeggios, the exercises her mother had drilled into her from her earliest lessons, Lily felt both the weight and the freedom of this new chapter in her life. Professor Chen was right. It would be hard work. There would be days when she questioned everything. But as she played, Lily realized something important. For the first time since losing her mother, she was no longer just surviving. She was building something. She was becoming someone new without losing who she had been. Tomorrow would bring more changes, moving into the dormitory, starting classes, facing the other students. But tonight, in the quiet of the empty restaurant where her life had changed with one performance, Lily played for herself and for her mother's memory, the music filling the space like a promise kept. 6 months passed in a blur of practice rooms, theory classes and metronomes ticking away the hours. Lily's small dormitory room at the Chicago Academy of Music had become a real home, the first stable place she'd known since her mother died. Though barely bigger than a closet, with just enough space for a twin bed, a desk, and a small upright piano purchased with donation money, it was hers. Photos of her mother now hung on the wall, alongside a calendar marked with lesson times, performances, and important deadlines. The academy's hallways no longer intimidated her. She had earned her place among the other students, though her path had been unconventional. Some still whispered about the homeless girl when they thought she couldn't hear, but most had come to respect her fierce work ethic and raw talent. On a crisp October afternoon, Lily sat in Professor Chen's studio for her twice-weekly lesson. Her fingers moved through Liszt's Un Sospiro, a piece that would have been impossible for her 6 months ago. The cascading arpeggios flowed from her hands with increasing confidence, though she still struggled with some of the more demanding technical passages. Professor Chen listened with his eyes closed, one finger occasionally rising to mark a moment that needed attention. When Lily finished, he nodded thoughtfully. "Your progress is remarkable," he said, making notes in his leather-bound teaching journal. "Your technique has improved dramatically. The hand crossings are much more fluid now." Lily smiled, though exhaustion pulled at her. She had been practicing 6 hours daily, on top of her academic classes. Dark circles had formed under her eyes and her wrists ached constantly. "But," Professor Chen continued, his tone shifting, "you're pushing too hard. I can hear the tension in your playing. Your shoulders are practically at your ears." "I need to be ready for the winter showcase," Lily said. "It's only 8 weeks away and everyone says talent scouts from Juilliard and Curtis attend." The winter showcase was the Academy's most prestigious performance opportunity. Only the top students from each department were invited to perform. When Professor Chen had recommended Lily for a spot, it had been both an honor and a terrifying responsibility. "Yes, and you will be ready," he assured her. "But not if you injure yourself before you get there." He closed his teaching journal. "I'm prescribing 2 days of rest." "No piano." Lily's eyes widened in horror. 2 whole days? "But I can't afford to lose that practice time." "Can you afford tendinitis? Carpal tunnel syndrome?" Professor Chen's voice was firm but kind. "Many promising careers have ended before they began, because young pianists ignored the warning signs of overuse." He stood and walked to his bookshelf, pulling down a thick biography. "Did you know that Vladimir Horowitz, one of the greatest pianists of the 20th century, took years off from performing during his career? He understood that sometimes stepping away from the piano is the best thing for your music." Lily reluctantly accepted the book he handed her. "What am I supposed to do for 2 days?" "Rest, read, listen to recordings. Call your friend Rosa. She's left 3 messages with the department secretary this week." He smiled at Lily's surprised expression. "Yes, I know all about your surrogate family at the restaurant. They're worried about you, and rightfully so." As Lily packed up her sheet music, Professor Chen added, "Oh, and there's someone from the Tribune waiting to speak with you in the main office. Another interview request, I believe." The Chicago Tribune had run a follow-up story on Lily last month, focusing on her adjustment to the academy and her progress since the viral video. The resulting article had sparked renewed interest in her story, including from a documentary filmmaker who wanted to trace her journey from homelessness to the concert stage. "Do I have to?" Lily sighed. The attention still made her uncomfortable. "Of course not. But consider this, your story inspires people. It reminds them that talent can be found in unlikely places if we're willing to look." Professor Chen adjusted his glasses. "However, if you choose to speak with them, set boundaries. Your music and well-being come first." Later that afternoon, after politely declining the interview, Lily sat on a bench in Grant Park, watching fallen leaves dance across the pavement. The late autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of distant snow. Without the piano filling her hours, she felt strangely untethered, like a boat that had slipped its mooring. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. "Dinner tonight, 7 p.m.? Anthony made your favorite pasta." Lily smiled and texted back a quick yes. She hadn't visited Bellinate in almost 3 weeks, the longest gap since starting at the academy. Guilt tugged at her conscience. Rosa and Anthony had been there for her when no one else was, yet she'd barely made time for them lately. That evening, Lily pushed open the familiar door of Bellinate. The restaurant had changed somewhat in the past months. A renovation had added more tables, and there was now a small stage around the piano where weekend musicians performed. But the warm atmosphere remained the same. Rosa spotted her immediately and rushed over, enveloping Lily in a tight hug that smelled of garlic and rosemary. "You're too thin," Rosa declared, holding Lily at arm's length to examine her. "And those eyes, you're not sleeping enough." "I'm fine," Lily protested, though she couldn't help leaning into Rosa's motherly concern. "Just busy with school." "Too busy to answer your phone?" Rosa raised an eyebrow, but her tone was gentle. "We were getting worried." Anthony appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. Over the months, he had transitioned from head waiter to assistant chef, pursuing his own long-deferred dream of cooking professionally. "The prodigy returns," he called out with a grin, giving Lily a one-armed hug. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten where you came from." The comment, though meant in jest, hit a nerve. Had she been taking their support for granted? Wrapped up in her new life, had she forgotten the people who made it possible? Over dinner in the quiet corner table that was always reserved for family, Lily found herself talking more than she had in weeks. She told them about her classes, her frustrations with a particularly difficult passage in the list piece, her nervousness about the upcoming showcase. The words poured out of her, and with them, some of the tension she'd been carrying. "You know," Rosa said, refilling Lily's water glass, "the night you played here, you weren't thinking about impressing anyone. You were just playing because the music was in you and needed to come out." "That was different," Lily said. "Now there are expectations. Professor Chen has put his reputation on the line for me. The other students are waiting for me to fail. The people who donated money expect me to become something special." "And what do you expect from yourself?" Anthony asked. "That's the only thing that matters." Lily pushed her pasta around her plate. "I don't want to let anyone down." "The only way to let us down would be to make yourself miserable," Rosa said firmly. "We didn't help you so you could work yourself to exhaustion. We helped you because you deserved a chance to pursue your gift in whatever way brings you joy." After dinner, as the restaurant filled with evening customers, Rosa insisted Lily sit at the piano. "Just for a few minutes," she urged. "For old time's sake." Lily hesitated, thinking of Professor Chen's instructions to rest. But then she remembered his other words. Listen to recordings, read. Maybe playing something completely different from her classical repertoire would be a form of rest for her overworked hands and mind. She sat at the familiar bench and let her fingers find the keys. Without overthinking, she began to play one of her mother's favorite jazz standards, Autumn Leaves. It wasn't part of her classical training, just something they used to play together on quiet evenings at home, improvising and enjoying the freedom of the music. As she played, Lily felt something shift inside her. For months, she had approached the piano as a mountain to be conquered, a test to be passed. Tonight, it was simply an old friend again. Customers paused their conversations to listen. A few pulled out phones to record, but Rosa quickly and firmly asked them not to. "Just listen," she told them. "Be present for the music." When Lily finished, the applause was warm but not overwhelming, just an appreciation for a beautiful moment shared. As she stood from the bench, an elderly man approached her. "That was lovely," he said. "You play with real heart." "Thank you," Lily replied with a smile. "I used to play a little myself years ago," he continued. "Nothing like you, of course. But I remember how it felt when the music was right. Like you could breathe again." His words stayed with Lily as she walked back to the academy that night. When was the last time she had felt that way about her playing? When had the joy been replaced by pressure and fear of failure? In her small dormitory room, she looked at the calendar on her wall with its highlighted practice blocks and lesson times. Then she looked at the photo of her mother, smiling from behind their old upright piano. "I think I've been doing it wrong, Mom," she whispered to the empty room. "I've been so focused on being good enough that I forgot why we loved music in the first place." The next day, still honoring her mandatory rest period, Lily sat in the academy's library listening to recordings. But instead of the classical pieces in her repertoire, she found herself drawn to jazz pianists, to folk music from around the world, to the kinds of pieces she and her mother used to play just for fun. By the time she returned to Professor Chen's studio 2 days later, something fundamental had shifted. When she placed her hands on the keys to begin the list once more, she approached it differently, not as a test of her worthiness, but as a story she was privileged to tell. Professor Chen noticed immediately. "What happened during your break?" he asked when she finished playing. "Your whole approach has changed." "I remembered something important," Lily said simply. "Why I'm here. Why I play." He nodded, a rare smile spreading across his face. "Now you're ready for the winter showcase." As Lily gathered her music to leave, Professor Chen added, "Oh, I almost forgot." The Yamaha Foundation called. "They want to sponsor you in the International Young Pianist Competition this spring." He watched her reaction carefully. "It's a remarkable opportunity, but I told them I would need to discuss it with you first." 6 months ago, such an offer would have overwhelmed Lily with anxiety and imposter syndrome. Today she felt a quiet confidence bloom inside her. "I'd like that," she said. "I think I'm ready for what comes next." 2 years had passed since the night a hungry homeless girl had walked into Bellanotte restaurant and changed her life with a single performance. On this warm spring evening, 19-year-old Lily Chen stood backstage at Chicago's Symphony Center, breathing deeply as she listened to the murmur of the audience filing into the concert hall. Tonight was her first major solo recital, a fundraiser for the new Music for All program she had helped create at the Chicago Academy of Music. The program provided instruments, lessons, and mentorship to children from disadvantaged backgrounds, with a special focus on those experiencing housing insecurity. Lily smoothed down the simple blue dress she had chosen for the occasion. Unlike many of her peers who preferred formal gowns for performances, she had opted for something elegant but understated. She wanted the audience to focus on her music, not her appearance. 5 minutes, the stage manager whispered, poking his head through the doorway. Lily nodded, her stomach twisting with nerves. Though she had performed many times over the past 2 years, at school recitals, competitions, and even as a featured soloist with the Academy's orchestra, tonight felt different. Tonight wasn't just about showcasing her talent. It was about coming full circle. A gentle knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Rosa entered, looking elegant in a deep red dress that Lily had never seen before. Behind her came Anthony, Professor Chen, and Mrs. Wu, the 4 people who had changed the course of her life. "We wanted to see you before you go on," Rosa said, embracing Lily warmly. "Though you probably don't need our good luck wishes anymore. You've grown beyond that." "I'll always need you," Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. "All of you?" Anthony handed her a small box. A little something to mark the occasion. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a tiny piano charm. Engraved on the back were the words, "Music speaks when words fail." "It was your mother saying," Mrs. Wu explained softly. "You mentioned it in one of your first interviews." Lily blinked back tears as Anthony helped fasten it around her wrist. "Thank you. It's perfect." Professor Chen stepped forward, his normally serious expression softened with pride. "Your mother would be proud of you, Lily. Not just of your playing, but of the person you've become." In the 2 years under his tutelage, Lily had blossomed. Her technique had developed remarkably, earning her scholarships and competition wins. But more importantly, she had found her unique voice as a musician, one that combined technical brilliance with genuine emotional depth. "I still get scared," Lily admitted. "What if I mess up? What if I let everyone down?" "Then you'll pick yourself up and continue," Professor Chen said simply. "That's what artists do. That's what you've always done." The stage manager appeared again. "It's time." After quick hugs and whispered encouragements, Lily's support team left to take their seats in the front row. Alone again, Lily closed her eyes and pictured her mother's face. "This is for you, Mom," she whispered. Then she walked onto the stage. The bright lights momentarily blinded her as applause filled the concert hall. Taking her place at the magnificent grand piano, Lily paused to look out at the audience. The hall was packed, a sellout, the organizers had told her excitedly. In the front row sat her chosen family: Rosa, Anthony, Professor Chen, and Mrs. Wu. Behind them, students from the academy, including several from the new Music for All program, their eyes wide with excitement. And in the back, standing against the wall because they'd arrived too late for seats, she spotted a group of people she hadn't expected: staff from the various homeless shelters where she now volunteered, teaching piano to residents. Lily took a deep breath and placed her hands on the keys. The program began with Bach, clean, precise mathematical Bach that had become her anchor over the years. As she played, her initial nervousness melted away, replaced by the calm focus that came from years of disciplined practice. The first half of the program showcased her technical prowess: Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, and Liszt. Each piece was performed with the precision and maturity that had impressed judges at recent competitions. But it was the second half of the program that truly represented Lily's journey. After intermission, she returned to the stage with a different energy. Instead of launching directly into the next piece, she moved to the microphone that had been set up beside the piano. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she said, her voice soft but clear. "The next piece I'll play is Debussy's Clair de Lune, which holds a special meaning for me." She paused, gathering her thoughts. 2 years ago, I was homeless, hungry, and had lost everything, including my mother, who taught me to play. When I walked into Bella Notte restaurant that night, I wasn't looking to showcase my talent. I was just hoping for a meal. A hush fell over the audience. What happened next changed my life, not just because people were kind enough to help me, but because I rediscovered something I thought I'd lost: my voice through music. She glanced at Rosa in the front row. "This piece is for everyone who has ever felt invisible and needed someone to truly see them." Returning to the piano, Lily began to play the same piece she had performed that fateful night at the restaurant. But this time, her interpretation had evolved, still emotional but with added layers of understanding and growth. The notes floated through the concert hall like moonlight itself, creating a moment of shared vulnerability between performer and audience. When she finished, the silence lasted several heartbeats before the applause began, gentle at first, then building to a standing ovation. Lily saw Rosa wiping away tears, and even Professor Chen's usual composure had cracked with emotion. For the final piece of the evening, Lily had chosen something unexpected: an original composition titled "The Journey Home." She had been working on it secretly for months, wanting to surprise Professor Chen and honor her mother's memory. The piece began simply, with a melody that evoked loneliness and loss. Gradually, it built in complexity and hope, incorporating elements from classical traditions alongside hints of the jazz her mother had loved. The final movement burst with joy and possibility, not a fairy tale ending, but a realistic portrait of resilience and growth. As the final notes resonated through the hall, Lily felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had done it. Not just survived, but created something beautiful from her pain. The audience erupted in applause. Flowers appeared on stage. Lily bowed deeply, overwhelmed by the response. As she accepted the applause, she couldn't help but think of how far she had come from that cold night when she had been turned away at the restaurant door. After the performance, the lobby filled with well-wishers. Music critics shook her hand. A representative from a major record label pressed a business card into her palm. Young piano students asked for autographs. But the moment that meant most to Lily came when a thin girl about 12 years old approached shyly with her mother. "You're from the Music for All program, right?" Lily asked, recognizing her from group classes. The girl nodded. I wanted to tell you. Before I heard your story, I was going to quit piano. It seemed pointless when we kept having to move around so much. But now I practice wherever I can. Sometimes just on paper keyboards when we don't have access to a real piano. Keep going, Lily told her, clasping the girl's hands. The music is inside you. No one can take that away. Later that evening, after the crowds had dispersed, Lily returned to Bella Nata with her chosen family for a private celebration. The restaurant had closed early for their party, and Rosa had prepared all of Lily's favorite dishes. As they sat around the table sharing stories and laughter, Lily looked around at the faces of those who had believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. I have something to share, she said during a lull in the conversation. Juilliard offered me a full scholarship for their undergraduate program. Exclamations of delight erupted around the table. That's wonderful news, Mrs. Wu exclaimed. New York won't know what hit it, Anthony added with a grin. But Professor Chen studied her face carefully. You don't seem as excited as I would expect, Lily smiled. I'm honored by the offer, truly, but I've decided to stay in Chicago. But Juilliard, Rosa began. We'll still be there in a few years if I change my mind, Lily finished. But right now my work is here. The Music for All program is just getting started. Those kids need consistent mentors, someone who understands what they're going through. She took a sip of water. Besides, the Chicago Conservatory has offered me a position that would let me continue my studies while also teaching part-time. Professor Chen nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. You're choosing to give back. I'm choosing to remember where I came from, Lily corrected gently, and to be part of making sure other kids like me get the same chance I did. Later that night, after the celebration had ended, Lily found herself once more at the piano in Bella Notte. The restaurant was empty now, the chairs stacked on tables, the lights dimmed, just as it had been the first time she sat here. Her fingers found the keys automatically, playing softly so as not to disturb Rosa and Anthony, who were cleaning up in the kitchen. She played without sheet music, without thinking, just letting the notes flow from some deep place within her. Is that a new piece? Rosa asked, coming to stand beside the piano. Lily nodded. Something I'm working on. I'm calling it Full Circle. Rosa rested her hand lightly on Lily's shoulder. You know, when you first played here, I thought we were helping you. But the truth is, you helped us too. You reminded us to look beyond appearances, to listen for the music in unexpected places. I wouldn't be here without you, Lily said simply. No, Rosa agreed. But we wouldn't be who we are without you either. That's how life works when we're paying attention. As Lily continued to play softly in the dimly lit restaurant, she felt complete in a way she hadn't since before her mother died. The journey from homeless teenager to accomplished musician hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, moments of doubt, nights when she questioned everything. But sitting here where it all began, Lily understood that her story wasn't just about talent discovered in an unlikely place. It was about connection, to music, to other people, to the best parts of herself. It was about finding home not just in a physical space, but in the community she had built and the purpose she had found. The music flowed from her fingers, filling the empty restaurant with possibility, the same way it had that first night when a hungry girl had nothing to offer but her gift. And somehow, it had been enough.